I paid $180,000 for my daughter's dream wedding in Provence, only to be told I was not welcome. Not because I was violent, not because I was drunk, but because I draw houses instead of painting masterpieces. She told her future in-laws that I had Alzheimer's, that my mind was gone, that I could not remember my own name. What she did not know was that while she was erasing me from her life, I was uncovering something that would erase her entire world. And it started with a voicemail that was never meant for my ears. Before we go any further, thank you for being here with me. If you are watching right now, comment where you are watching from, and tell me, have you ever felt invisible to the people you sacrificed everything for? And just a quick note, this story includes some fictionalized elements for storytelling and educational purposes. Any resemblance to real people or places is coincidental, but the message behind it is absolutely real. My name is Raymond Whitmore. People call me Ray. I am 71 years old, and I have lived in Denver, Colorado, for most of my life. I am not a sophisticated man by anyone's definition. My hands are rough from decades of gripping pencils, measuring tapes, and lumber. I started as a framing carpenter at 19, hauling 2x4s in the brutal Colorado winters until my shoulders burned. But I taught myself architecture at night. I sat at my kitchen table with library books and a drafting pencil, teaching myself how buildings worked from the ground up. By the time I was 35, I had my own firm. Small, modest, but mine. I designed homes. Not mansions. Not museums. Homes. The kind of places where families eat breakfast together and children mark their height on the doorframe. I was proud of that. I thought my daughter was too. It was 2 in the morning on a Wednesday. I was in my studio on the second floor of my house, the little room with the slanted ceiling where I still draft by hand when I cannot sleep. Since Kate passed 8 years ago, sleep has become a stranger that visits less and less. So I draw. I draw floor plans for houses that will never be built. It keeps my hands steady and my mind quiet. My phone buzzed on the drafting table. The screen lit up the dark room. An email from Olivia, my daughter, my only child. The subject line read, "Please read before morning. Important." My hands trembled slightly as I picked up the phone. I thought something was wrong. I thought maybe the wedding was off. Maybe she was hurt. Maybe she needed me. I opened it. The email read, "Dad, I need you to understand something before you pack your bags. I have thought about this for weeks, and I have to be honest with you. Your presence in Provence will be a disaster. Etienne comes from a family of artists and gallery owners. They discuss Cézanne over breakfast. They debate color theory at dinner. You do not speak French. You do not understand art. You draw houses, Dad. That is not the same world. You would be lost. And worse, you would make me look lost by association." I sat down on my drafting stool. The wood creaked under my weight. I kept reading. "I have told Etienne and his family that you are suffering from early onset Alzheimer's. I told them your memory is deteriorating rapidly and your doctors have forbidden you from flying. It is the kindest explanation. It gives you dignity. It gives me space. Please do not contact Etienne's family. Please do not call me during the ceremony. I will send you photos afterward." I stared at that word. Alzheimer's. She had given me a disease. She had rotted my mind on paper to justify my absence. She had made me a vegetable so she could play the role of the grieving daughter with a tragic backstory. Then came the last paragraph. "Also, the installation artist for the ceremony hall is requesting an additional $60,000 for the immersive light show. I know it sounds like a lot, but Etienne says it will make the event unforgettable. Can you wire it by Thursday? The account details are below. I love you, Dad. This is for the best." I put the phone face down on the table. I looked at the blueprint I had been drawing. It was a house. A simple 2-bedroom cottage with a covered porch and a garden. The kind of house I used to dream about building for Kate and me when we retired. That dream died when she did. And now, apparently, so had I. I looked at the framed photo of Kate on the wall above my desk. She was laughing in it, holding a paintbrush, splattering color on a canvas in the backyard. Kate loved art. Real art. She painted for joy, not for status. She would have seen through this whole charade in a heartbeat. I whispered to her photo in the dark room. "She's gone, Katie. Our little girl is gone." I stood up. I did not cry. I did not scream. I walked downstairs to my kitchen table, opened my laptop, and did what I always do when a structure fails inspection. I pulled out a red pen. I did not sleep. I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of black coffee that went cold twice before I finally drank it. The red pen was in my hand, and I had a legal pad in front of me with notes. Numbers, dates, contract references. I was doing what I always do before a demolition. I was reading the blueprints. I was looking for the load-bearing walls. But first, I needed to hear her voice. I needed to know if the email was a moment of weakness, or if my daughter truly believed I was worth less than the price of a plane ticket. I waited until 10 in the morning Paris time. Then I picked up my phone and dialed. She answered on the second ring. The background was loud. I could hear the clinking of glasses, the murmur of conversation, and a jazz piano playing something soft and expensive. She was at brunch. She was sipping champagne on my dime, while telling me I was not welcome at the table. "Hi, Dad," she said. Her voice was light, breezy, like she had not just emailed me a death sentence 6 hours ago. "I read your email, Olivia," I said. "Oh, good." She sounded relieved. Not ashamed. Relieved. Like a contractor who finds out the permit went through without inspection. "Look, I know it is a lot to process, but honestly, it is the best solution for everyone. Etienne's family is very particular about their circle. They are artists, Dad. They live and breathe aesthetics. You would feel out of place. I have been to galleries before, Olivia." She laughed. A small, patronizing sound. "Dad, going to the Denver Art Museum on a Tuesday afternoon is not the same as dining with the Marchands. They own galleries across Provence. They curate shows in Monaco. It is a different universe." A male voice called out from the background. The accent was thick, French, dripping with the kind of confidence that comes from never having to earn anything. "Olivia, tell the handyman to wire the money. The installation artist is here and he wants confirmation." The handyman. He called me the handyman. This man who was spending my money, sleeping under a roof I paid for, drinking wine I financed. He called me the handyman, like I was hired help, who had overstayed his welcome. Olivia did not correct him. She did not flinch. She just sighed and said, "Dad, did you see the wire details in the email? 60,000 for the light installation. It is going to be breathtaking. The whole ceiling will look like the Sistine Chapel but modern. $60,000. I repeated. "For lights. It is not just lights, Dad. It is art. You would not understand." There it was. You would not understand. 4 words that summarized 29 years of fatherhood. Every tuition check. Every rent payment. Every emergency wire transfer at 2 in the morning when she was in college and needed bail money for a parking violation. All of it reduced to you would not understand. I remembered her high school graduation. She was 17. I had come straight from a job site because the framing crew had hit a problem with the roof trusses and I could not leave until it was solved. I made it just in time, still wearing my work boots, my flannel shirt with sawdust on the collar. I was so proud. I was beaming. She found me in the crowd after the ceremony. She looked at my boots. She looked at the dust on my shirt. And she said, "Dad, why could you not just change? Everyone saw you." Jessica's dad wore a suit. I told her I was sorry. I told her next time I would change. I did not tell her that I had worked 16 hours straight to make sure her college fund was on track. I did not tell her that the sawdust was from building an addition on the Henderson house that would pay her first semester's tuition. I should have seen the signs then. The embarrassment was not new. It had been growing for years like a crack in a foundation, invisible until the wall starts to lean. "Olivia," I said carefully, "about the iPad. You mentioned I could watch the ceremony on a screen." "Yes," she said quickly, eagerly. Etienne set up a plan. "We will have an iPad right on a stand near the front. You can watch live. It will be like you are there without the risk of, complications." Complications. She meant me. I was the complication. My face, my hands, my accent, my profession. Everything that I was, everything that built her life from nothing, was now a complication to be managed from 4,000 miles away. I heard Kate's voice in my head then, clear as a bell. Kate used to sit at this same kitchen table, watching me write checks for Olivia's ballet lessons, her summer programs in Europe, her apartment deposits. And Kate would shake her head and say, "You are too soft on her, Ray. One day, she is going to look at your drafting table and see a cash register instead of a workspace. And by then, it will be too late to teach her the difference." I should have listened. Kate was always better at reading people than I was. I could read a blueprint in seconds, but I could never read the warning signs in my own daughter's eyes. "Okay, Olivia," I said. My voice was flat, controlled. The voice I use when a subcontractor hands me work that fails code. "I understand." "Really?" She exhaled hard. "Oh, thank God. I was so worried you would be dramatic about this. You are the best, Daddy. Seriously. And the wire? Can you send it today? The artist is literally standing here." "I will handle it," I said. "Love you, Dad. Got to go." Etienne is waving me over. The line went dead. I set the phone down on the table next to my cold coffee. I looked at the legal pad full of numbers. I looked at the red pen. She wanted me to be a ghost. A phantom watching through a screen, muted and distant, existing only as a signature on a check. She wanted the output of my life, without the inconvenience of my presence. Fine, but ghosts have a way of showing up when you least expect them. And this ghost still had a red pen, a phone full of contracts, and 50 years of knowing exactly how to take a building apart without killing anyone inside. I picked up the phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found a name I have trusted for 25 years. Helen Park. She has been my attorney since I nearly lost my business in the '98 recession. Back then, a developer stiffed me on a $300,000 contract, and Helen fought like a wolverine in a pantsuit until every cent was recovered. She does not lose. She does not flinch, and she does not suffer fools. It was 3 a.m. I did not care. When you find a crack in a foundation, you do not wait until business hours to report it. She answered on the 3rd ring. Her voice was thick with sleep, but already sharpening. That was Helen. Even half-conscious, she was loading ammunition. "Ray, it is 3 a.m. Is the house on fire?" "No," I said. "But it might be soon. I need you awake, Helen. We have work to do." There was a pause. I heard the sound of sheets rustling, a lamp clicking on, and then the familiar creak of her office chair. She kept a desk in her bedroom. Always had. "Talk to me," she said. I told her everything. I read her the email word for word. I told her about the Alzheimer's lie. I told her about the $60,000 demand for a light show. I told her about the phone call, about Etienne calling me the handyman, about my daughter suggesting I watch my own funded wedding through a 10-inch screen from 4,000 miles away. When I finished, Helen was silent for 3 full seconds. In 25 years, I have never known Helen Park to be silent for 3 seconds. She once argued a judge into submission in under 90. "That ungrateful little architect's daughter," she whispered. Then louder, sharper. "Ray, listen to me. I reviewed those vendor contracts myself 6 months ago. You insisted on handling everything directly. You are the sole signatory on every single agreement. The venue, the caterer, the gallery space, the installation artist, all of them. Your name, your credit card, your signature. I know, I said. Then you know what that means, she continued. I could hear her typing already. Fast, aggressive. The sound of a woman going to war. Every contract has a cancellation clause, standard 72-hour rule. If the client cancels more than 72 hours before the event date, the vendor retains the non-refundable deposit but must release the hold on the remaining balance. The wedding is Saturday. Today is Wednesday. We are inside the window. But barely. We need to move now. Then move, I said. Ray. She stopped typing. Her voice softened, just a fraction. Just enough for me to hear the concern underneath the steel. I need you to be sure. This is demolition. Once I send these emails, the charges are planted. There is no rebuilding what we blow up tonight. I looked at the legal pad in front of me. The numbers were clear. $180,000. My retirement. The land I sold in Boulder. The pickup truck I loved. The 401k I drained to zero. All of it converted into champagne and chandeliers and a fairy tale that I was not allowed to attend. Helen, I said, I have demolished buildings before. The trick is knowing which walls are load-bearing. And right now, the only load-bearing wall in my life is my self-respect. Everything else can come down. Another pause. Then I heard it. A small, grim laugh. God help that girl, Helen said. All right. I am opening the contract folder now. We start with the venue. Chateau de Fontaine. $70,000. You signed the agreement in January. The deposit was $14,000. Non-refundable. That money is gone. But the remaining $56,000 is sitting as a pre-authorized hold on your visa. It posts as a final charge in exactly 36 hours. Kill it, I said, moving to the caterer. Provence Catering Royale. $40,000 total. $8,000 deposit gone. $32,000 recoverable. Kill it. Gallery Lumiere. The reception space rental. $30,000. $6,000 deposit. $24,000 recoverable. Kill it. And the installation artist. $25,000. $5,000 deposit. $20,000 recoverable. Kill all of it, Helen. Every last dollar that has not already been spent. I want it back in my account by Friday. That is $132,000 recoverable, she said. I could hear her calculator clicking. You will lose $33,000 in deposits. That money is gone regardless. I know, I said. Consider it tuition. Tuition for what? She asked. For the most expensive lesson I am ever going to teach my daughter. That there is a difference between a father and a funding source. And she just found out which one I am. Helen was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I am drafting the first email now. Formal notice of cancellation. Chateau de Fontaine. You will be copied on everything. Once I hit send, we are past the point of no return. Hit it, I said. I heard the decisive click of a trackpad. Then another. Then the rapid-fire typing resumed. Faster now. Relentless. Helen fired up her laptop like a demolition crew firing up the excavator. I heard the rapid clicking of keys through the phone like a jackhammer breaking through resistance. The first email was drafted. The first wrecking ball was swinging. Ray, she said between keystrokes. Go make yourself some coffee. A fresh pot. This is going to be a long morning, and I need you sharp. I stood up and walked to the kitchen counter. I dumped the cold coffee down the sink and started a fresh pot. The smell of dark roast filled the small room. Outside the window, the Rocky Mountains were invisible in the darkness, but I knew they were there. Solid, unmovable, like me. I was not going to crumble. I was not going to beg. I was going to do what I have done my entire career. When a project goes sideways, I was going to pull the permits, condemn the structure, and start the controlled demolition. The emails started landing in my inbox at 3:27 in the morning. Carbon copies, one after another. Each one a controlled explosion, detonating across the Atlantic. The first one hit. To Chateau de Fontaine, formal notice of cancellation of services regarding the Whitmore Marchand wedding. Contract reference, 7419. Effective immediately. I stared at the words on my screen. $70,000. That was the venue. A 16th-century estate in the lavender fields outside Aix-en-Provence. Olivia had sent me photos when she first found it. Stone walls draped in wisteria. A courtyard with a fountain shaped like an angel pouring water from a pitcher. She had called me crying with joy. "Daddy, it is perfect. It is everything I ever dreamed of." I remembered what it cost me to make that dream real. I sold the lot in Boulder, 2 acres on the western slope that I had been holding for 15 years. Kate and I bought it together the year before she got sick. We used to drive up on Sundays and sit in folding chairs, looking at the view of the Flatirons, talking about the cabin I would design for us someday. A-frame with a stone fireplace, floor-to-ceiling windows facing west, a porch wide enough for 2 rocking chairs. I never built that cabin. Kate died before I finished the drawings, and now the land was gone too, converted into a chateau rental for a party I was banned from attending. I accepted the loss. $14,000 in deposits vanished like sawdust in the wind. But the remaining $56,000 was coming home. The second email arrived. Provence Catering Royale. Contract terminated. $40,000. $8,000 lost in deposits. $32,000 released. That money came from my pickup truck, a 2012 Ford F-150 that I had driven for 11 years. I loved that truck. It had 200,000 miles on it and a dent in the tailgate from the time I backed into a mailbox during the blizzard of 2018. It smelled like coffee and lumber. I sold it for $19,000 and added the rest from savings. I bought a used Subaru to replace it. Front-wheel drive. No soul. $40,000 for food I would never taste. Served at a table where my chair had been removed. The third email. Galerie Lumiere. Reception space rental canceled. $30,000 total. $6,000 deposit gone. $24,000 coming back. That was my 401k. The last chunk of it. My financial advisor nearly had a stroke when I told him I was liquidating. He said, "Ray, you are 71. This is your safety net." I told him my daughter needed it. He shook his head and processed the withdrawal. I remember signing the form and feeling a small cold wind blow through my chest, like opening a window in January. The fourth email. The installation artist. $25,000 canceled. $5,000 deposit forfeited. $20,000 recovered. That one hurt differently because it was the freshest wound. Olivia had only requested it 3 weeks ago. She said Etienne wanted the ceremony hall transformed into an immersive art experience. Projections on the ceiling. Light sculptures along the aisle. She said it would be like getting married inside a painting. I wired the deposit from my checking account without blinking, because that is what fathers do. We make dreams real, even when we cannot afford them. I watched the confirmation emails stack up, one by one, like dominoes falling in a line. Released, 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 released. In the span of 40 minutes, $132,000 was unlocked from the hands of French vendors and floating back toward my accounts. But the money was not the point. Not really. The point was what was happening in Provence right now. It was mid-morning there. Wednesday. The sun would be high over the lavender fields. Olivia would be at brunch, or at a fitting, or walking the grounds of the chateau with Etienne, discussing where the string quartet would sit. I imagined the moment the venue manager would check his email. I imagined the polite but firm French accent informing them that the American account had been terminated. I imagined the catering director calling Olivia to ask why the contract was voided 3 days before the event. I imagined the confusion, then the panic, then the rage. I poured myself a fresh cup of coffee. The sun was starting to rise over the Rocky Mountains. The peaks caught the first light, turning gold and pink against the navy sky. Denver was waking up. Construction crews were starting their engines. Somewhere in the city, a framing carpenter was lacing up his boots just like I used to, getting ready for a long day of honest work. And in Provence, my daughter's fairy tale was dissolving like morning fog. I did not feel happy. I did not feel triumphant. I felt the way you feel after you sign a demolition order on a building you designed yourself. You know it has to come down. You know the foundation is compromised. You know that leaving it standing would endanger everyone inside. But you still remember the day you drew the first line. You still remember what it was supposed to become. I took a sip of coffee and watched the light creep across the kitchen table. The legal pad was still there with all my notes. The red pen sat on top, its cap off, ready. The emails had gone out like wrecking balls through glass. Each one a controlled explosion. Each one a wall coming down in a cloud of dust and debris. But I did not know yet that the biggest wall I would have to tear down was still standing. It was not in Provence. It was not in a chateau or a gallery. It was inside my own house. And when I found it, it would change everything. I must have dozed off at the kitchen table because the next thing I knew, my phone was vibrating so violently against the wood that it sounded like a circular saw biting into plywood. I opened my eyes. The coffee was cold again. The sun was fully up now, flooding the kitchen with sharp morning light. And my phone screen was a wall of notifications, stacked so thick I could not see the wallpaper beneath them. 31 missed calls, 63 text messages, 4 voicemails. It was 5 in the morning in Denver, which meant it was noon in Provence. The business day had started in France. The emails had been opened. The dominoes were falling. I picked up the phone and unlocked it. I did not call anyone back. I read. The text told a story in real time, like watching a building collapse floor by floor from a distance. The first message from Olivia arrived at 4:12 in the morning my time. Calm, confused. Dad, the florist just called saying there is a flag on the payment. Can you check with your bank? Probably just a hold. 14 minutes later. Still composed, but the edges fraying. Dad, are you awake? The venue manager left a message. Something about a cancellation notice. This has to be a mistake. Call me. Then the shift. The moment confusion turned to realization. Dad, why did I just get an email from the caterer saying the contract is void? What is happening? Call me now. Then the panic. Capital letters. No punctuation. Messages sent seconds apart like bullets from a nail gun. DAD pick up, followed by, the gallery says we have no reservation. Followed by, what did you do? Then came Etienne. His messages were different, colder, more calculated. Mr. Whitmore, there seems to be a miscommunication with the vendors. Please call Olivia immediately to resolve this. That was the first one. Polite. Strategic. Testing the waters. 20 minutes later, the mask slipped. You are making a very serious mistake, old man. You do not know who you are dealing with. Fix this immediately, or there will be consequences. Consequences. I almost laughed. The man was threatening me with consequences, while wearing clothes I paid for, eating food I bought, living in a hotel room on my credit card. The audacity was architectural in its scale. I switched to the voicemail tab. 4 messages. I pressed play on the first. Olivia. Crying. Not the soft crying of someone hurt, but the sharp, ragged gasping of someone whose plan is unraveling. Dad, please, please tell me this is a glitch. The hotel says we need to vacate by tonight because the week was prepaid and the payment was retracted. Etienne's mother is furious. She is screaming at everyone. Please, Daddy. Fix it. Just fix it. I pressed next. Etienne. His accent was thicker now, the English rougher around the edges. The charm was gone. Listen to me carefully, old man. My family has connections in this region. You cannot just cancel contracts and disappear. We will pursue legal action. We will make your life very difficult. Transfer the funds. Now, I pressed next. A French number I did not recognize. I expected another rant from Etienne, or maybe a vendor calling about the cancellation. Instead, a woman's voice filled my kitchen. Loud, shrill, aggressive, and in perfect, rapid-fire English. You listen to me, you miserable old fool. I stopped breathing. The voice was not French. There was no accent, no elegance, no carefully curated Parisian refinement. This woman sounded like she had grown up 3 blocks from a subway station in Brooklyn. Hard consonants, flat vowels, the kind of voice that orders a large coffee regular and does not say, please. We had a deal. The voice screeched. Your daughter said you were reliable. She said you were the silent partner. Silent. You do not get to pull funding 3 days before the show opens. We have buyers lined up. Buyers. Do you understand what that means? People are expecting delivery next week. The shipment has already been cataloged. If this falls apart, I am coming for you personally. Do you hear me? I am coming for every penny. The message ended with the violent slam of a phone being thrown onto a hard surface. I sat there, motionless. My coffee grew colder. My mind grew sharper. That was Colette Marchand, Etienne's mother. The woman Olivia described to me as a refined Parisian gallery curator who only spoke French. The woman who supposedly spent her days discussing Monet and Matisse over café au lait. The woman who was too sophisticated to converse with a simple American architect. But the woman on that recording did not discuss art. She discussed shipments, deliveries, buyers, a show opening. She talked like a logistics coordinator, not a curator. She talked like someone running a supply chain, not someone appreciating beauty, and she spoke English. Fluently, aggressively, without a single French syllable. I replayed the message. I listened again to the specific words. Buyers lined up. Expecting delivery. The shipment has been cataloged. These were not art world terms in any context I understood. This was the language of merchandise. Product. Goods being moved from point A to point B for profit. Olivia had told me specifically, multiple times, that Colette did not speak English. She said, that was the reason I could not sit with the family during the reception. She said, Dad, Colette only speaks French and Italian. You would just sit there in silence. It would be humiliating for everyone, but humiliation was not the reason. The reason was that if I sat across from Colette Marchand and spoke to her in English, she would answer. And if she answered, the performance would end. The curtain would fall. The audience would see the scaffolding behind the set. I looked at my kitchen wall. There was a framed blueprint hanging there, one of my first commercial projects. A small office building on Colfax Avenue. Nothing special architecturally. But I kept it because it taught me a lesson. During construction, we discovered the soil report had been falsified. The ground was unstable. The foundation we poured would have cracked within 2 years. We caught it because I walked the site myself. I did not trust someone else's report. I checked. Now I was checking again. And what I found beneath the surface was not solid ground. It was rot. Deep, structural rot. Hidden under a fresh coat of expensive paint. Someone was lying about everything. And I needed to know how deep the rot went before the whole structure came down on top of me. The rot was deeper than I imagined. And I found it not on my phone, Not in an email, but in my own mailbox. I had walked to the front door to clear my head. The morning air in Denver was crisp, that thin mountain air that cuts through your lungs like a blade. I opened the mailbox out of habit. Bills, junk, a catalog for kitchen fixtures I never ordered, and then, at the bottom of the stack, a thick envelope from First National Bank of Colorado. The return address was their mortgage servicing department. I do not have a mortgage. I paid off this house 15 years ago. The last payment was a Tuesday in November. I remember because Kate and I opened a bottle of champagne that night and danced in the kitchen to no music. She said, "We own this house free and clear, Ray. Nobody can ever take it from us." I tore the envelope open, standing on my front porch. The letter inside was printed on heavy paper. Official. Formal. The header read, "Mortgage confirmation and payment schedule. Property at 1847 Maple Drive, Denver, Colorado." My hands went still. My breath stopped. I read the first paragraph. "Dear Mr. Whitmore, this letter confirms the successful processing of your home equity mortgage in the amount of $320,000 secured against the above property. Monthly payments of $2,418 will commence on the 1st of next month. $320,000. Someone had mortgaged my house. My house. The house I built with my own hands 32 years ago. The house where I raised Olivia. The house where Kate took her last breath in the bedroom upstairs, holding my hand, telling me she was not afraid. I flipped to the second page. There it was. A power of attorney document. My name printed in block letters. My social security number. My date of birth. And at the bottom, a signature that looked almost like mine. Almost. But not quite. The R was too rounded. The loop on the W was too wide. I have signed my name 100,000 times on contracts and permits and checks. I know my own signature. The way I know my own heartbeat. This was not it. Someone had forged my signature on a power of attorney and used it to take a $320,000 mortgage against my home. I walked back inside. My legs felt hollow. I sat down at the kitchen table and called Helen. She answered immediately. She had not gone back to sleep. "Helen," I said. My voice sounded strange, distant, like it was coming from someone else's body. "I need you to look at something." I took a photo of the document and texted it to her. I heard her phone buzz. Then silence. Then a sound I have never heard Helen Park make in 25 years. She gasped. "Ray," she said slowly, "this is a forged power of attorney. Someone used your identity to secure a mortgage on your property. This is a federal crime. This is identity theft. This is bank fraud." "I know what it is," I said. "When was this processed?" she asked. I heard pages turning. She was already looking up regulations. 3 months ago, I said, reading the date on the letter. "March 15th. And you never received notification?" "No. This is the first letter. Either the bank failed to notify me properly, or someone intercepted my mail." Helen was quiet for a moment. Then she said the words I already knew were coming. "Ray, who has access to your social security number? Who knows your date of birth? Your full legal name? Your property address?" I closed my eyes. The answer was obvious. It was the same person who knew my bank account numbers. The same person I had given supplementary credit cards to. The same person who had access to my filing cabinet when she visited last Christmas and spent 2 hours in my office supposedly looking for old family photos. "Olivia," I said. The name felt like ash in my mouth. "Ray, I need to ask you directly. Do you believe your daughter forged this document?" I looked at the signature again. The rounded R. The wide W. When Olivia was 12, I taught her to sign checks on my behalf for the office when I was out on job sites. She practiced my signature over and over on scrap paper until it was close enough to fool a distracted bank teller. I thought it was charming at the time. A father-daughter project. I never imagined she would use that skill to steal the roof off my head. Yes, I said. I believe she did. Then we have a problem, Helen said. If we do not contest this within 30 days of the processing date, the mortgage becomes binding. The bank will have a legal lien on your property. If payments are not made, they will foreclose. You will lose the house. 30 days. The mortgage was dated March 15th. Today was April 9th. I had 21 days, 3 weeks, to prove the forgery, contest the mortgage, and save my home. Can we do it? I asked. We can, Helen said. But Ray, this changes everything. This is not just a canceled wedding. This is criminal fraud. We need to involve law enforcement. Not yet, I said. Ray. Not yet, Helen. Give me 48 hours. I need to understand the full picture first. I need to know who these people really are. The Marchands. Etienne. His mother. I need to know what my daughter is involved in before I bring in the police. If this goes to the authorities now, Olivia goes to prison. I need to understand if she is a criminal or a victim before I make that call. Helen sighed. 48 hours. Not a minute more. I hung up and opened my contacts. I scrolled until I found a name I had not used in 7 years. Marcel Girard, a former chief inspector with the French National Police, now running a private investigation firm in Marseille. We met 12 years ago when I consulted on a hotel renovation project in Lyon. He handled security for the development firm. Sharp, discreet, relentless. I typed a message. Marcel. It is Ray Whitmore from Denver. I need a full background investigation on a family named Marchand in Provence, Etienne and his mother Colette. They claim to be gallery owners. I think they are frauds. Check debts. Check criminal records. Check everything. Also check my daughter, Olivia Whitmore. See if her name is attached to any of their financial documents. I am wiring $5,000 to your account. As a retainer. I need answers within 12 hours. I hit send. My thumb hovered over the screen. Then, I typed one more line. This is personal, Marcel. Someone is trying to take my house. I put the phone down. My hands were shaking. Not from fear. From a rage so cold it felt like January wind cutting through an open wall frame. My daughter did not just want me gone from the wedding. She wanted me gone from my own home. The house I designed, the house I built with lumber I selected myself. The house where Kate took her last breath in my arms, whispering that she loved me, whispering that everything would be okay. I was not going to let that happen. Not without a fight. And not without the truth. I needed time. Marcel needed 12 hours. Helen needed 48. The mortgage contestation required documentation. The investigation required patience. But patience only works if the other side stays calm. And right now, Olivia was not calm. She was panicking. And panicked people do desperate things. I needed her to believe the money was coming. I needed her to relax. I needed her to think the old handyman had folded again, opened his wallet again, and saved her one more time. I needed to lie to my daughter. I picked up the phone at 6 in the morning Denver time. Noon in Provence. I dialed her number. She answered before the first ring finished. Her voice was raw, hoarse from crying or screaming or both. Dad. Oh my God, Dad. Where have you been? Everything is falling apart. The venue says we are canceled. The caterer hung up on us. Etienne is losing his mind. His mother is threatening to call her lawyers. Dad, please tell me this was a mistake. Tell me the bank made an error. I closed my eyes. I thought about the forged signature on the power of attorney. I thought about the $320,000 mortgage she had taken against my home without my knowledge. I thought about the voicemail from Colette screaming about shipments and buyers in a Brooklyn accent. And I said, "It was a mistake, Olivia." The relief in her exhale was immediate. Physical. like air rushing out of a punctured tire. "Oh, thank God," she breathed. I knew it. I told Etienne it was just a banking error. You know how international transfers get flagged sometimes. "So, you are fixing it? The money is coming back?" "I am at the bank right now," I said. The lie tasted like copper in my mouth, like biting down on a nail. There was a security hold because of the international amounts. They flagged it as potential fraud. I almost choked on the irony. I am signing the override paperwork. It should take 24 hours to reprocess. 24 hours? Her voice pitched up. "Dad, the rehearsal dinner is tomorrow night. The gallery opening. We need the gallery space. Confirmed by tonight. Tell them the money is coming," I said. "Tell them there was a wire delay. Tell them it will clear by tomorrow morning at the latest." Okay. Okay. I can do that." She was breathing fast, calculating. "And the 60,000 for the installation? That too?" "Everything," I said. "All of it. Just keep everyone calm. Dad, you are a lifesaver. Literally. I love you so much." Etienne was going crazy. His mother was saying terrible things. "But I knew you would come through. You always do." "I always do," I repeated. "Love you, Daddy. I will call you after the gallery opening tomorrow night. Maybe we can do the iPad thing during cocktail hour. I will set it up somewhere nice so you can see the art." "Sounds perfect, Olivia." She hung up. I put the phone down and walked to the bathroom. I stood over the sink and splashed cold water on my face. I gripped the porcelain edge until my knuckles went white. I looked at my reflection. I looked old. I looked tired. I looked like a man who had just committed a sin against his own principles. I had never lied to my daughter before. Not once in 29 years. When she was 8, I taught her mechanical perspective, drawing at this very kitchen table. I showed her how to draw a room with a vanishing point, how every line converges toward truth if you follow it far enough. I told her, "Every line has to be honest, sweetheart. One crooked line ruins the whole design. It throws off the angles. It compromises the structure. Always draw straight." And now I had drawn the crookedest line of my life. I had told her the money was coming when it was not. I had told her everything was fine when I was about to tear her world apart. I felt sick. Physically sick. But I reminded myself why. You do not warn a termite colony before you fumigate. You do not announce a building inspection to a contractor who is cutting corners. You show up unannounced. You catch them in the act. You let the evidence speak. I walked to my bedroom. I pulled out a carry-on bag from the closet. I packed light. 2 shirts. A pair of dark jeans. My shaving kit. My laptop with all the contract files. Then I reached into the back of the closet, past the flannel shirts and the work jackets, until my hand found a garment bag that had not been touched in years. Inside was a suit. Tom Ford. Charcoal gray, with a subtle peak lapel. Kate bought it for me 11 years ago when my firm won the Colorado Residential Design Award. I wore it to the ceremony, and Kate told me I looked like a man who built cities. I wore it one more time. To her funeral. Because she always said I looked my best in it. After that, I hung it in the back of the closet and never touched it again. I unzipped the bag. The fabric was still perfect. Wool and silk. It smelled faintly of cedar from the closet. I ran my hand over the lapel. Kate picked this out. Kate held it up to my chest in the store and said, "Ray, this is not a suit. This is armor. Armor." That is exactly what I needed. I packed the suit carefully. I booked a ticket on my laptop. Denver to Marseille-Provence Airport. Economy class. Row 38. Middle seat. The ticket cost $600. I was done spending $4,000 on comfort for a war I did not start. I stood at the front door with my bag in my hand. I looked back at the house one last time. The photo of Kate in the hallway. The blueprint of the Colfax office building. The drafting table upstairs, where I still drew houses at 2 in the morning when the loneliness got loud. "She is in trouble, Katie," I whispered. "Deep trouble. Deeper than she knows. And she does not even see it coming. I have to go pull her out. But she is going to hate me when I do." I grabbed my bag and walked out the door. I locked it behind me. The morning air hit my face, cold and clean. Denver spread out below me. The city I had helped build one house at a time. In architecture, we call it a controlled demolition. You do not just swing a hammer at random, you study the structure. You identify the stress points. You plant the charges in precisely the right locations, and then you wait for the countdown. The countdown had started, and I was headed for the detonation site. The flight was a blur of turbulence and recycled air. I did not sleep. I did not eat the plastic-wrapped sandwich they served. I stared at the seat back in front of me and replayed the last 24 hours like a slow-motion demolition video. The charges had been planted. The countdown was ticking. And now I was hurtling toward the detonation site. At 500 miles per hour. Somewhere over the Atlantic, my phone buzzed in airplane mode. I had turned it on as soon as we reached cruising altitude. And the encrypted messages from Marcel had started arriving within minutes. I opened the file folder he had sent. It was thick, hundreds of pages. Photographs, bank records, police reports, court documents. It was the architectural blueprint of my daughter's destruction, and I was about to read every line. The first page was a simple dossier. Marchand, Étienne Luc. Date of birth? Le 12 mars 1992. Place of birth? Marseille, France. Known aliases: Étienne Marchand. Professional: Luc Martin. Business: Jean. Luc Moreau. Personal: criminal record: multiple arrests for fraud, forgery, and embezzlement across France, Monaco, and Switzerland. Convictions: 2. Current status: wanted for questioning in Monaco regarding a €1.2 million art investment scam that defrauded 12 elderly investors. Last known address: a rented apartment in the 8th arrondissement of Marseille. No known assets. No legitimate employment for the past 5 years. I flipped the page. Marchand, Colette. Date of birth: the 14th of July 1962. Place of birth: Brooklyn, New York, USA. Aliases: Colette Marchand, professionnel. Colette Martin, personnel. Cécile Marchand, business. Criminal record: 1 arrest for passing bad checks in New York State, 1,998. Conviction: none. Current status: believed to be in France, assisting son in ongoing fraud schemes. Place of birth: Brooklyn. Accent: French. Learned. Nationality: American. The report included a photocopy of her driver's license from New York. The photo showed a younger woman with the same sharp eyes, the same aggressive smile. She had been born in Flatbush. She had grown up in Queens. She had never set foot in Paris until she was 23 years old. I closed my eyes. The woman on the voicemail. The one who screamed about shipments and buyers in that Brooklyn accent. She was not pretending to be French. She was a fraudster from New York pretending to be a French aristocrat. And my daughter had bought the act, hook, line, and sinker. Or maybe she had bought it because it was useful. I scrolled through the rest of the file. The gallery scam was elaborate. The Marchands rented empty commercial spaces in picturesque towns like Aix-en-Provence and Saint-Remy. They called them galleries. They filled them with cheap reproductions of famous works, sometimes hand-painted copies sold as original studies by starving artists. They targeted wealthy American and British tourists who spoke no French and trusted anyone with a European accent and a charming smile. They sold a Modigliani sketch for $20,000 that was actually a $20 print with a fake signature. They sold Picasso ceramics for $50,000 that were mass-produced in a factory in China. They laundered the money through shell companies registered in Belize and the Seychelles. And they had done this before. Multiple times. The file listed 4 previous victims, all women between the ages of 55 and 70, all widowed or divorced, all with disposable income and a desire to own a piece of the European art world. The pattern was always the same. Romance, marriage, disappearance of the groom with the cash. The women were left, broke and humiliated, their life savings gone to fund the Marchand's next con. My daughter was not the first. She would not be the last. I kept scrolling. There it was. The mortgage fraud. The power of attorney document was included as an exhibit in a police report from the First National Bank of Colorado. Someone had walked into a branch in downtown Denver 3 months ago with a flawless fake ID and a power of attorney that bore a striking resemblance to my signature. The loan officer, a man named Gary Thornton, had been suspended pending investigation. The bank had failed to notify me because the address on file was my old office address, which I had not used in years. The letter had been returned as undeliverable. The mortgage had been processed. The $320,000 had been wired to an account in the name of a shell company called Artisan Holdings Limited in Cyprus. The account was closed within 24 hours. The money was gone. I felt a cold fury settle over me. It was not the hot, red rage of earlier. It was colder, more precise, like the feeling you get when you find a major structural flaw in a building you thought was sound. It was the fury of a man who has spent his life building things that last, looking at a world that celebrates fraud and calls it sophistication. My daughter had not just been embarrassed by her choice of husband. She had been complicit. She had signed the power of attorney herself. The file included a copy of the application she had submitted to the bank, along with the forged POA. Her signature was real. Her social security number was real. Her fingerprints were on the entire scheme. She had helped steal $320,000 from her own father's home equity. She had risked making me homeless to fund her fairy tale. I closed the laptop. I looked out the window at the endless black of the Atlantic Ocean far below. The plane was descending now, beginning its approach to Marseille. The seatbelt sign chimed on. I could see the lights of the French coast in the distance, a thin golden line where the sea met the land. I was not just a father anymore. I was a building inspector, and I had just been handed a report that said the entire structure I had spent a lifetime building was rotten to the core. The plane banked, and I saw the lights of Marseille spread out below me like a circuit board, glowing and humming with life. Somewhere down there, my daughter was sleeping peacefully, dreaming of her wedding day, believing her father was still the pushover who would write checks to make problems disappear. She had no idea what was coming. I fastened my seatbelt and watched the wing flaps adjust. The landing gear would descend soon. The final approach. I was no longer a grieving father. I was a man with a blueprint for demolition. And I was about to show everyone exactly how it was done. The plane touched down at Marseille-Provence Airport with a gentle bump and a screech of tires. The fasten seatbelt sign chimed off. I unfastened my seatbelt, grabbed my carry-on bag, and stood up. My knees popped from sitting for 9 hours. I felt stiff, but my mind was sharp. The countdown was in its final hours. I walked through the terminal, following the signs for arrivals. The airport was quiet at this hour. Just after 6 in the morning, local time, I passed duty-free shops with their fluorescent lights still off, cafes with chairs stacked on tables. I felt like a ghost myself, moving through a world that did not know I was coming. Marcel was waiting for me outside the terminal, leaning against a black Peugeot that looked like it had seen better days but still ran like a Swiss watch. He was exactly as I remembered him from 12 years ago in Lyon. Sharp suit, crisp shirt, eyes that missed nothing. He pushed off the car and opened the trunk without a word. I tossed my bag in and got into the passenger seat. "Marcel," I said, Thanks for coming. He started the car and pulled into the morning traffic. The pleasure is mine, Ray. You said it was urgent. And you said it was personal. It is. We drove in silence for a few minutes, heading west toward Aix-en-Provence. The sun was just starting to rise over the limestone hills, painting the sky in shades of orange and gray. Marcel navigated the roundabouts with the ease of a local. He finally spoke. The Marchands. Etienne and Colette. I have their file on my desk. It is not pretty. Start with Colette, I said. The mother. Marcel glanced at me. You know she is not French, do you? I know she sounds like she grew up in Brooklyn. He nodded. Colette Marchand, born Colette Levine in Flatbush, Brooklyn, New York, the 14th of July, 1962. She moved to France in 1985 after marrying a man named Henri Marchand. He died in 1992, left her a small inheritance and a taste for a lifestyle she could not afford on her own. She started running small scams almost immediately. Bad checks, fake art deals. She did a year in a French prison in 1998 for passing forged certificates of authenticity. Since then, she has been a ghost, surfacing now and then to run a quick con before disappearing again. And Etienne? Her son. Born in 1992, just before Henri died. Etienne has never held a legitimate job. He is a professional confidence man. He has been arrested 4 times in 3 countries for fraud, forgery, and embezzlement. Convictions in Monaco and Switzerland. He is currently wanted for questioning in a €1.2 million art investment scam that targeted elderly investors in the south of France. He takes a wealthy woman, marries her, convinces her to invest in some non-existent business, then disappears with the money. He has done this 4 times that we know of, all women between 55 and 70, all widowed or divorced, all with disposable income and a desire to feel young again. I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. And my daughter? Marcel hesitated. Olivia is the 5th. She fits the profile perfectly. She is 30, recently divorced or separated, financially independent. And she has a father who is an easy mark for her. She has been using your name, Ray. She has been telling people you are a wealthy art collector, that you have a $10 million estate, that you are financing her wedding as a showcase for her future gallery business. I closed my eyes. The betrayal was complete. She had not just fallen for a con. She had become part of it. She had helped forge my signature. She had mortgaged my house. She had sold my identity to fund her fantasy. What is the gallery scam? I asked. Galerie Lumière is not a gallery. It is a storefront. They rent it for a month at a time. They fill it with cheap reproductions, sometimes hand-painted copies sold as original works. They invite wealthy tourists and expatriates to private viewings. They serve champagne. They tell stories about the artists. They create urgency. This piece will be gone by the end of the night. They close deals on the spot. The money is wired to shell companies in Cyprus or Belize. Within 48 hours, the gallery is empty. The art is gone. The Marchands are gone. It is a classic short con with a high price tag. And the installation artist? I asked. The $60,000 light show? A fabrication. There is no artist. The money was going to a shell company called Lumière Installations Sarl. It was going to be wired to a bank in Monaco and then withdrawn as cash. Etienne planned to disappear with it the day after the wedding. I stared out the window at the passing vineyards and olive groves. The landscape was beautiful, peaceful, deceptive, just like the people I was about to confront. How do we stop it? I asked. Marcel smiled a thin, cold smile. We do not stop it, Ray. We expose it. And we make sure everyone sees the architects of the fraud for what they are. He pulled the car over on the side of the road just outside Aix-en-Provence. We were a block from the gallery. I could see the awning, white with gold lettering, Galerie Lumière. It looked elegant. It looked expensive. It looked like a lie. Marcel got out and opened the trunk. He pulled out a thick envelope stuffed with cash. "For Claude," he said. "The owner. He is a friend. He agreed to sell us the hosting bill for 12,000 euros. He will tell the Marchins the check cleared. He will give us 2 seats at the front. He will even keep the champagne flowing. But after tonight, he never wants to see them again." I took the envelope. It felt heavy. It felt like justice. "And Dominic?" I asked. "Is already at the hotel. He has his equipment. He is ready when you are." I nodded. "Let's go to work." I took a deep breath. The Tom Ford suit felt like armor. The red tie was a slash of color against the charcoal gray, a warning sign if anyone knew how to read it. I adjusted my cuffs one last time, the way Kate taught me. She always said a man's cuffs should be perfect before he enters a room where anything can happen. I stepped out of the shadows of the hotel doorway and into the warm Provence night. The gallery was a study in controlled elegance. Soft lighting, the gentle hum of conversation, the clink of crystal, the scent of champagne and expensive perfume. It looked like a place where art was born and money changed hands discreetly. It was all a lie, of course. The lighting was designed to hide flaws. The conversation was a performance. The champagne was cheap cava, in a fancy bottle. But the people believed it. They wanted to believe it. That was the real con. I walked through the front door like I owned the place. Which, in a way, I did. I had bought the hosting bill with 12,000 euros in cash. I had paid for the champagne they were drinking. I had financed the very fraud that was about to be exposed. The room fell silent as I entered. Conversations died mid-sentence. Heads turned. Glasses paused halfway to lips. I saw Olivia first. She was standing near the center of the room, a vision in white silk. Her hair swept up, a glass of champagne in her hand. She looked radiant. She looked happy. She looked like a woman who had no idea her world was about to collapse. Her eyes met mine, and for a fraction of a second, I saw it. The flicker of recognition, the flash of pure terror. Then she composed herself. She smiled, a tight, brittle smile that did not reach her eyes. "Dad," she said, her voice carrying across the room. "What are you doing here? I thought you were in Denver." I kept walking. I did not smile. I did not acknowledge her question. I walked straight to the small podium where the gallery owner, Claude, was standing with a microphone, ready to introduce the evening's festivities. I took the microphone from his hand. He did not resist. He knew why I was there. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, my voice clear and carrying in the silent room. "My name is Raymond Whitmore. I am an architect from Denver, Colorado, and I am, as some of you may have been told, deceased." A murmur went through the crowd. I saw Olivia's face pale. Etienne stepped forward from the shadows near the bar, his hand tightening around a glass of whiskey. "I am not dead," I continued. "But my daughter, Olivia Whitmore, has been telling people I am for the past 6 months. She has been using my name, my reputation, my supposed wealth, to sell you a dream, to sell you art that does not exist, to convince you that you are investing in a gallery that is nothing more than a rented storefront filled with cheap imitations." I turned to the wall where the paintings hung. I nodded to Dominic, who was standing near the back with his briefcase open. He stepped forward, holding a small ultraviolet light. "This," I said, "is not art. This is fraud." Dominic clicked on the UV light. He ran it over the first painting, a supposed early Picasso sketch. Under the ultraviolet, the paint glowed a sickly green. Acrylic. Modern. Less than 6 months old. The room gasped. A woman in a silk dress stepped forward, peering at the canvas. "That's impossible," she whispered. "I paid 50,000 euros for this." "You paid 50,000 euros for a forgery," I said. "And you are not the only one." Dominic moved to the next painting. A supposed Renoir landscape. Same result. Modern acrylic. A third painting. A Modigliani nude. The UV light revealed a pencil sketch underneath that used a Staedtler brand eraser. A tool not manufactured until 2020. Modigliani died in 1920. I turned back to the crowd, now buzzing with anger and confusion. "You have been lied to," I said. "By my daughter. By her fiancé, Etienne Marchand. By his mother, Colette Marchand, who you may know as a refined Parisian gallery owner but who was actually born Colette Levine in Flatbush, Brooklyn, and has a criminal record for passing bad checks in New York State." Colette Marchand, standing near the bar, went rigid. Her eyes narrowed. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. The mask was off. I looked at Etienne. He was pale now, sweating. He tried to laugh it off. "This is ridiculous," he said, his voice cracking. "Some kind of joke, yes? My mother is French. We are French. This man is a lunatic." I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a manila envelope. I opened it and took out a stack of documents. Police reports, bank records, photographs of Colette's New York driver's license, a copy of her criminal conviction. "Your mother is an American citizen from Brooklyn," I said, holding up the driver's license for everyone to see. "She has been running this scam for years, 4 times before. Always the same pattern. Wealthy widow. Quick marriage. Disappearance of the groom with the cash. You are not the first, and you will not be the last." The room erupted. Voices rose in anger. A man in a dark suit stepped forward, his face red with rage. "I want my money back," he said in a thick German accent. "All of it. Immediately." Etienne tried to speak, but the words caught in his throat. He looked at Olivia, who was shaking her head, mouthing "I'm sorry" over and over, but it was too late. The structure had been condemned. The walls were coming down. I stepped down from the podium and walked toward the exit. I did not need to see the rest. The investors would handle it. The police would be called. The Marchands would run. Again, but I was not done yet. I had one more wall to tear down before this demolition was complete. I pushed through the front doors and stepped out into the cool night air. The countdown was still ticking, and I still had a daughter to confront. I stepped out into the cool night air, the sound of breaking glass and angry voices fading behind me. The street was quiet, empty, except for a few late-night diners at a cafe across the way. The moon hung low over the limestone buildings, casting long shadows that looked like the blueprints of a life that had just collapsed. I did not have to wait long. The gallery door burst open behind me. Olivia stumbled out, her white dress now stained with wine and something darker that might have been blood from the cut on her hand. Her hair was coming undone. Her eyes were wild with a panic I had never seen in her before. She grabbed my arm with a strength I did not know she had. "Dad, wait, please." I stopped but did not turn to face her. I kept my eyes on the street ahead, on the shadows that stretched long and thin across the cobblestones. "You have to listen to me," she said, her voice cracking. "You don't understand. Etienne," he said. "If I didn't help him, he would—" "Save it, Olivia," I said, my voice flat. "I know everything." She froze. The panic in her eyes shifted, just for a second, to something else. Fear. Guilt. The look of a child caught with her hand in the cookie jar. Except, this cookie jar was my life savings and my home. "What do you mean?" she whispered. "I know about the mortgage," I said. "I know about the forged power of attorney. I know about the gallery scam. I know about the 4 other women. I know about Colette's little speech in the voicemail about shipments and buyers. I know everything." Her face went pale. The color drained completely, leaving her looking like a ghost in her own right. She let go of my arm and took a step back, as if my words were physical blows. "Dad, I can explain," she started. "Etienne, he said he loved me. He said we could build something together. He said you would understand once you saw the gallery. He said, you would be proud of me. Proud? I turned to face her finally. My voice did not rise. It did not need to. The cold fury in it was enough to make her flinch. You forged my signature, Olivia. You mortgaged my house without my knowledge. You told people I was dead. You used my name to defraud innocent people out of their life savings. And you think I would be proud? Tears streamed down her face now. Real tears. Not the manipulative kind she used to get what she wanted from me when she was 16 and needed a later curfew. These were tears of desperation, of a life built on lies finally collapsing under its own weight. It wasn't supposed to be like this, she sobbed. Etienne said it was a sure thing. He said the investors would double their money. He said once the gallery was established, we would all be rich. He said you would never even know about the mortgage, because we would pay it back before you even noticed. And the Alzheimer's lie? I asked. Was that Etienne's idea too? She looked away. I thought it was kinder. I thought if people believed you were gone, they wouldn't ask questions. I thought I could make it all work. You thought you could use me as a ghost, and no one would notice the corpse was still breathing. She had no answer. She just stood there, shaking, her white dress stained and torn at the hem from where she had fallen earlier. She looked like a broken doll someone had tossed aside. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the white envelope I had been carrying since Denver. I held it out to her. What's this? She whispered. Your ticket home, I said. One way. Economy class. Seat 38B. Leaves at 6 a.m. from Marseille, Provence. Gate 14. She took the envelope with trembling hands. She opened it slowly, like she was afraid of what she might find. She pulled out the boarding pass and stared at it. Then she looked back at me, confusion mixing with the tears. Dad, I can't go back to Denver. Not now. Not after. Everything. You have two choices, Olivia, I said, my voice leaving no room for argument. You can get on that plane tomorrow morning and go back to Denver. You can start over. You can get a job. You can pay your own way. You can rebuild your life from the ground up. Honestly this time. Or you can stay here, in Provence, with Etienne and Colette, and see how that works out for you. She stared at me, her eyes wide with disbelief. What? What do you mean? I mean the police are on their way, I said. The investors have already called them. When they get here, they will ask questions. They will look for the people responsible. And when they find you, when they find Etienne, when they find Colette, they will arrest you. For fraud, for forgery, for conspiracy. You will go to a French prison, Olivia, and you will not come out for a very, very long time. Her face crumpled. The tears came faster now, but these were different. These were tears of someone who finally saw the cliff's edge they had been running toward without looking. But you're my father, she whispered, as if that changed anything, as if biology erased betrayal. I am, I said. And as your father, I am giving you a choice, a chance to walk away, a chance to start over without a criminal record. But you have to walk away now. Tonight, before the police get here, you have to leave Etienne and Colette to face the consequences of their own actions. You have to understand that what you did was wrong, and you have to be willing to live with that knowledge for the rest of your life. I stepped closer to her. I looked her dead in the eyes. I am not paying for your mistakes anymore, Olivia. I am not your ATM. I am not your safety net. I am not your ghost. You want a father? Earn one. You want a second chance? Take it, but you do it on your own. No more lies. No more schemes. No more using people. I turned and started walking away again. I had taken 3 steps when she spoke again. Her voice small and broken. Dad, I'm sorry. I did not stop. I did not turn around. I just kept walking down the cobblestone street, my footsteps echoing in the quiet night. Behind me, I heard her sob once, a raw, ugly sound of pure anguish. Then I heard her footsteps running in the opposite direction, toward the train station, toward whatever future she thought she could build from the ashes of the one she had burned down tonight. I did not look back. I did not need to. The demolition was complete. The structure had collapsed, and now I had to see what, if anything, could be salvaged from the rubble. 8 months later, the autumn air in Denver carried a crispness that sharpened the senses. The leaves on the maple trees outside my new bungalow were turning gold and crimson, painting the lawn in hues of fire. I stood on the back porch, a cup of coffee in my hand, watching the sunrise paint the Rocky Mountains in shades of pink and orange. It was a different kind of sunrise than the one I'd seen from my old kitchen window 8 months ago. That one had been the beginning of a demolition. This one felt like the first day of a rebuild. I had sold the old house on Maple Drive, the one Kate and I had built together, the one where she took her last breath. It was too big, too full of ghosts. The bank had voided the mortgage after Helen presented the evidence of forgery. I walked away with my equity intact, but the memories were harder to liquidate. I bought this little bungalow on the outskirts of town, a modest place with good bones and a yard that needed work. It was a fresh start, a new foundation. I had poured a new concrete patio in the back, rebuilt the deck, planted a garden with roses that Kate used to love. I was rebuilding, slowly but surely, and I was not doing it alone. Helen was inside, probably already at the kitchen table with her laptop, reviewing some contract or another. We had fallen into a comfortable rhythm. She came over most mornings with coffee and a newspaper. We talked. We planned. We were rebuilding a friendship that had been dormant for too long, and maybe, just maybe, we were building something more. I had not felt this peaceful in a long time. The morning calm was broken by the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. An old Toyota, muffler rattling. The kind of car that speaks of hard work and limited means. I recognized it immediately. My hand tightened on my coffee mug. My heart did a strange little stutter that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with a decade of fatherhood that refused to be erased. Olivia stepped out of the car. She looked different. The designer clothes were gone. The perfect hair and makeup. In their place were jeans with worn knees, a faded gray sweater, and sneakers that had seen better days. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and there were dark circles under her eyes. But they were clear. No more manipulation. No more lies. Just exhaustion and something else. Something like humility. She carried a paper bag from the bakery down the street, the one where she worked as a barista now. She walked up the path to the porch, her steps slow and deliberate. She stopped a few feet away, as if giving me space to decide whether to let her in or not. "Hi, Dad," she said, her voice quiet. I nodded. "Olivia, I brought croissants," she said, holding up the bag. "From the bakery. I made them myself. Well, I helped make them. I'm learning." I studied her face. The sharpness was gone. The entitlement had been chiseled away by months of hard work and regret. She looked older, wiser, broken, but in a way that might be fixable. "Come on in," I said. "Coffee's fresh." She followed me inside. Helen looked up from her laptop and gave her a small, warm smile. "Morning, Olivia." "Hi, Helen." Olivia sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I had drafted blueprints for a life that had once seemed so solid. She placed the bag of croissants in the center. I wanted to apologize. Again. Properly. I know I've said it before, but I waved a hand. Apology accepted. "Olivia, the fact that you're here, looking like this, means more than the words." She looked down at her hands, still stained with flour from the early shift at the bakery. It's been hard, but it's been good, too. I'm learning what things actually cost. Not just money, but time, effort. I'm learning to be useful. I'm proud of you, I said, and I meant it. Every syllable. She looked up, tears welling in her eyes. You are? I am, I said. Your mother would be too. That broke her. She put her head down on the table and cried. Quiet, heaving sobs that shook her whole body. I did not go to her. Not yet. This was her penance. Her reckoning. She needed to feel it. When the tears subsided, she sat up, wiping her face with her sleeve. I'm sorry for everything. For the mortgage. For the Alzheimer's lie. For using your name. For trying to make you disappear so I could have a fairy tale. I know, I said. And I forgive you. But forgiveness doesn't mean what you did doesn't matter. It matters. It hurt. It changed things. But you can't change the past. You can only build from where you are now. She nodded, wiping her nose on her sleeve. I don't expect you to trust me again. Not right away. I don't even expect you to like me. I needed you to know that I know. I know I was wrong. And I'm trying to be better. Better is a verb, Olivia, I said. It requires action, not just intention. I know, she said softly. That's why I'm here. I want to help. With the deck. You said you were building a new one. I want to learn. I want to build something that lasts. With my own hands. I looked at her. Really looked. The girl who had once turned up her nose at my calloused hands was now offering to hold a hammer. The girl who had wanted a fairy tale was learning to bake croissants at 5 in the morning. The girl who had tried to erase me was sitting at my kitchen table, asking for a second chance. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcel. Etienne and Colette, arrested in Marseille. Extradition hearing next month. Olivia's name not mentioned in charges. Good. I showed Olivia the text. She read it and closed her eyes, a wave of relief washing over her face. Then she opened them and looked at me. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For not letting them drag me into it. For giving me a way out. I gave you a choice, I said. You made your own way out. I just handed you the map. She smiled then. A small, real smile. Not the polished, practiced smile from the gallery opening. This one was crooked and tired and beautiful. Can I stay for a while? She asked. Help with the deck? Maybe learn how to read a blueprint? I nodded. The guest room is made up. You know where it is. She stood up and walked around the table. She hesitated for a second, then leaned down and hugged me. It was awkward and stiff at first. But then she relaxed into it, and I hugged her back. It felt like the first honest thing we had done together in years. I love you, Dad. She whispered. I love you too, Olivia, I said. Now let's go build something. The morning sun was warm on our backs as we worked. Sawdust swirled in the light like gold dust, catching the rays as it fell to the ground. The air smelled of fresh-cut cedar and pine. The clean scent of creation. It was a far cry from the stale air of a courtroom or the cold sterility of a police station. This was honest work. This was building. Olivia handed me a board, her movements sure and steady now. She had learned quickly. The hesitant, unsure girl who had shown up 8 months ago with flour on her hands and shame in her eyes was gone. In her place was a young woman with calluses on her palms and confidence in her shoulders. You're getting the hang of it, I said, nodding at the board she'd just squared. She wiped sweat from her forehead with the back of her wrist, leaving a faint smudge of sawdust. It's just math, right? Measure twice, cut once. I can do math. I smiled. That's my girl. She looked up at me. A small, genuine smile touching her lips. I never thought I'd hear you say that again. I handed her the drill. Well, you're hearing it now. Keep that up, and you'll be designing your own houses before long. She took the drill and secured the joist hanger with careful, even pressure. The screw bit into the wood with a satisfying crunch. She stepped back and examined her work, head tilted to one side, like she was critiquing a piece of art. "Not bad," she said. "For a beginner." I clapped her on the shoulder. "Not bad at all." We worked in comfortable silence for a while. The only sounds, the rhythmic buzz of the saw, the occasional hammer strike, and the distant chirping of sparrows in the maple tree. The deck was taking shape. A simple rectangle of wood, 20 by 16, with a pergola frame, already erected at one end, for climbing roses. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't a showcase piece. But it was solid. It was real. And it was ours. Olivia broke the silence. "Do you ever think about her, Mom?" I paused, my hand on the measuring tape. "Every day," I said. "Not a day goes by I don't think about her. Sometimes it feels like she's right here, watching me measure twice and cut once." Olivia's voice was soft. She would have loved this. The deck, the garden, you, rebuilding. "Yeah," I said. "She would have. I'm sorry," Olivia said suddenly. "For everything. For not being the daughter she deserved. For not being the daughter you deserved." I put down the measuring tape and turned to face her. "Olivia, look at me." She did, her eyes wide and vulnerable. "Your mother loved you more than anything in this world. She loved you when you were born. She loved you when you were a toddler throwing tantrums in the grocery store. She loved you when you were a teenager who thought she knew everything. And she loved you even after you made mistakes. Even after you hurt people. Her love didn't disappear because you messed up. It just adapted. It found a way to keep loving you. Even from wherever she is now." I reached out and took her hand. Her fingers were rough from work, but they were warm and alive in mine. "My love for you is the same," I said. "It doesn't disappear because you messed up. It just waits. It waits for you to come back to it. And you did. That's all that matters." She started to cry then. Quiet tears that rolled down her cheeks and disappeared into the sawdust on her work shirt. I pulled her into a hug, and we stood there on the half-built deck, father and daughter, holding each other in the golden morning light. When she pulled away, she wiped her eyes with the back of her hand and gave a watery laugh. "Ugh, I'm a mess." "You're human," I said. "It's allowed." She picked up the drill again, her hands steadier now. "So, what's next?" "The railing?" I handed her the tape measure. "After we finish this section, we start the pergola. Then we can stain everything. Match the color of the house." She nodded, her eyes bright with purpose. "Okay, let's do it." We worked until the sun was high overhead, until the deck was complete, except for the final sanding and staining. We stood back and looked at what we had built together. It was simple. It was solid. It was real. "It's beautiful, Dad," Olivia said softly. I put my arm around her shoulders. "Yeah," I said. "It is, and it was. Not because of the wood, or the screws, or the craftsmanship. It was beautiful, because it was built on a foundation of forgiveness. Because it was built by a father and daughter who had taken the wreckage of their relationship and, board by board, nail by nail, had rebuilt something stronger than before. The deck would weather and age. The wood would gray. The screws might rust. But the foundation would hold. And so would we. This is Ray Whitmore. And this is the story of how I lost my daughter and found her again. It's been 8 months since that night in Provence when everything collapsed. 8 months since I stood in a gallery full of fake art and real betrayal, and chose to tear it all down rather than let my daughter be buried in the rubble. 8 months since I looked her in the eye and told her the hardest truth she'd ever hear. That the man she thought was a pushover was in fact a builder who knew exactly which walls to demolish to save the foundation. People ask me if I regret it. If I regret flying to France. If I regret exposing the fraud, if I regret the pain I caused her in that moment, I tell them no. Regret is for things you can't change. This was a choice, a necessary demolition. Sometimes you have to tear down a structure to save the land it's built on. And sometimes, if you're lucky and you work hard and you have a good lawyer named Helen Park on your side, you get to rebuild something stronger in its place. So what's the point of this story? Why did I tell it to you? Because I see so many fathers, so many parents making the same mistake I did. We think love means giving our children everything they want. We think it means removing every obstacle, paying every bill, fixing every problem with a swipe of a credit card. We think it means being a ghost in the background, a silent signature on a check, a handyman who is always available but never truly seen. That's not love. That's enabling. And enabling doesn't build character. It builds fragility. It builds people who crumble at the first real pressure because they've never learned how to stand on their own. The hardest thing I ever did was not flying to France to confront a room full of liars. The hardest thing I ever did was look my daughter in the eye and say, "No more." The hardest thing was letting her fall so she could learn how to get back up. The hardest thing was loving her enough to let her hate me for a while. And the most beautiful thing I've ever done? Watching her learn how to build something with her own hands. Seeing her stand on a deck she helped construct, feeling the solid wood beneath her feet, knowing she earned every splinter and every sore muscle. That's what love looks like when it's done right. It's not a ghost. It's a foundation. So if you're a parent, hear me. Your job is not to give your children the world. Your job is to teach them how to build their own world, brick by brick, honest effort by honest effort. Your job is to be a guide, not a ghost. A teacher, not an ATM. A foundation, not a fairy tale. And if you're a son or a daughter watching this, hear me too. Your parents are not an endless source of funding. They are not a safety net that will always catch you when you fall. They are human beings with their own dreams, their own struggles, their own lives. One day, they will be gone. What will you have left when the money runs out and the calls stop coming? Will you have built anything of your own? Or will you be standing in the rubble of a life someone else paid for, wondering how to build from scratch when the tools have been taken away? My daughter Olivia is learning to build. She gets up at 4 a.m. to bake croissants for minimum wage. She comes home with flour on her hands and pride in her heart. She is learning the value of a day's work. She is learning that she is capable of more than she ever imagined because she had to start from zero. And me? I'm learning too. I'm learning that being a father doesn't end when your child makes a mistake. It evolves. It deepens. It becomes a choice you make every single day to love someone even when they don't deserve it, even when they push you away, even when they tell you they hate you. Because love isn't a feeling. It's an action. It's showing up. It's speaking the truth even when it hurts. It's walking away when staying would enable the destruction. I lost $180,000 on that wedding. But I got my daughter back. Not the princess. Not the heiress. The real one. The one with flour on her hands and a crooked smile and a work ethic she never had before. That's worth more than any blueprint I've ever drawn. So to every parent watching, be the foundation, not the ghost. And to every child, build something that lasts. Start today, because in the end, we don't remember the fairy tales we were given. We remember the ones we built with our own 2 hands. The morning sun was warm on our backs as we worked. Sawdust swirled in the light like gold dust, catching the rays as it fell to the ground. The air smelled of fresh-cut cedar and pine, the clean scent of creation. It was a far cry from the stale air of a courtroom or the cold sterility of a police station. This was honest work. This was building. Olivia handed me a board, her movements sure and steady now. She had learned quickly. The hesitant, unsure girl who had shown up 8 months ago with flour on her hands and shame in her eyes was gone. In her place was a young woman with calluses on her palms and confidence in her shoulders. "You're getting the hang of it," I said, nodding at the board she'd just squared. She wiped sweat from her forehead with the back of her wrist, leaving a faint smudge of sawdust. "It's just math, right? Measure twice, cut once." "I can do math," I smiled. "That's my girl." She looked up at me, a small, genuine smile touching her lips. "I never thought I'd hear you say that again." I handed her the drill. "Well, you're hearing it now. Keep that up, and you'll be designing your own houses before long." She took the drill and secured the joist hanger with careful, even pressure. The screw bit into the wood with a satisfying crunch. She stepped back and examined her work, head tilted to one side like she was critiquing a piece of art. "Not bad," she said. "For a beginner." I clapped her on the shoulder. "Not bad at all." We worked in comfortable silence for a while. The only sounds, the rhythmic buzz of the saw, the occasional hammer strike, and the distant chirping of sparrows in the maple tree. The deck was taking shape. A simple rectangle of wood, 20 by 16, with a pergola frame already erected at one end for climbing roses. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't a showcase piece. But it was solid. It was real. And it was ours. Olivia broke the silence. "Do you ever think about her, Mom?" I paused, my hand on the measuring tape. "Every day. Not a day goes by I don't think about her. Sometimes it feels like she's right here, watching me measure twice and cut once." She looked up, her eyes soft. "She would have loved this. The deck. The garden. You. Rebuilding." "Yeah," I said. "She would have. I'm sorry," she said suddenly. "For everything. For not being the daughter she deserved. For not being the daughter you deserved." I put down the measuring tape and turned to face her. "Olivia, look at me." She did. Her eyes wide and vulnerable. "Your mother loved you more than anything in this world. She loved you when you were born. She loved you when you were a toddler throwing tantrums in the grocery store. She loved you when you were a teenager who thought she knew everything. And she loved you even after you made mistakes. Even after you hurt people. Her love didn't disappear because you messed up. It just adapted. It found a way to keep loving you. Even from wherever she is now." I reached out and took her hand. Her fingers were rough from work, but they were warm and alive in mine. "My love for you is the same," I said. "It doesn't disappear because you messed up. It just waits. It waits for you to come back to it. And you did. That's all that matters." She started to cry then. Quiet, heaving sobs that shook her whole body. I pulled her into a hug, and we stood there on the half-built deck, father and daughter, holding each other in the golden morning light. When she pulled away, she wiped her eyes with the back of her hand and gave a watery laugh. "Ugh, I'm a mess." "You're human," I said. "It's allowed." She picked up the drill again, her hands steadier now. "So, what's next?" "The railing?" I handed her the tape measure. "After we finish this section, we start the pergola. Then we can stain everything. Match the color of the house." She nodded, her eyes bright with purpose. "Okay, let's do it." We worked until the sun was high overhead, until the deck was complete, except for the final sanding and staining. We stood back and looked at what we had built together. It was simple. It was solid. It was real. "It's beautiful, Dad," Olivia said softly. I put my arm around her shoulders. "Yeah," I said. "It is." And it was. Not because of the wood or the screws or the craftsmanship. It was beautiful because it was built on a foundation of forgiveness. Because it was built by a father and daughter who had taken the wreckage of their relationship and, board by board, nail by nail, had rebuilt something stronger than before. The deck would weather and age. The wood would gray. The screws might rust. But the foundation would hold. And so would we. Months passed, and the deck settled into the landscape like it had always been there. Vines from the roses we planted began to climb the pergola posts. The wood grayed to a soft silver, weathered by sun and rain. It became our favorite place: morning coffee, evening conversations, the quiet moments in between when words weren't necessary. Olivia's life took shape around this new foundation. She enrolled in night classes at the community college, studying construction management. She wanted to understand the business side of building, the permits, the codes, the contracts. She worked days at the bakery, nights at school, and weekends with me, learning the trade that had defined my life. She was building a future with her own two hands, just as I had taught her. One evening in late spring, we sat on the deck steps, watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of orange and purple. The air was warm, filled with the scent of jasmine from the garden. Olivia was quiet for a long time. Her knees pulled to her chest, her arms wrapped around them. "Dad," she said finally, her voice soft. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if I hadn't come back?" I took a sip of my iced tea, the glass cool in my hand. "I try not to," I said. "Regret is a useless tool. It doesn't build anything. It just tears down what's already there." She nodded, staring at the horizon. "I think about it a lot. What if I had stayed in Provence? What if I had gone to prison? What if you hadn't given me that ticket? You would have survived," I said. "You're strong, Olivia. Maybe not in the ways you thought you were back then, but you are." She leaned her head against my shoulder. "I don't feel strong. I feel like I wasted so much time. So many years hating the hands that built the life I threw away." I put my arm around her. "Those hands are building something new now. That's what matters." She was silent again, and I let her be. The wind chimes on the pergola tinkled softly in the breeze. "I want to design a house someday," she said after a while. "Not a fancy one, just a simple, solid house, with good bones, a place where someone can feel safe." I smiled into the twilight. "I'd like to see that. I want you to help me," she said, turning to look at me. "When I'm ready, when I actually know what I'm doing, I'll be here," I said. "Whenever you're ready." She rested her head on my shoulder again, and we sat there in silence until the stars came out. The deck held us up, solid and true, just like the foundation of this new life we were building together. 5 years later, the deck was still there, weathered and worn in the best possible way. The wood had grayed to a soft silver. The pergola was covered in a lush canopy of climbing roses that Kate would have loved. And the foundation, the one Ray had rebuilt with his own hands, remained solid, unyielding, a testament to the work that had gone into it. Ray stood on the deck one morning in early spring, a cup of coffee in his hand, watching the sunrise paint the mountains in shades of pink and gold. He was 76 now, his hair thinner, his hands more gnarled with arthritis, but his eyes were still sharp, still blue, still full of a quiet strength that had carried him through the worst of it. Olivia stepped out onto the deck, a blueprint tube in her hand. She was 29 now, her face more mature, her eyes carrying a depth they hadn't had at 24. She had graduated top of her class from the community college construction management program. She now ran her own small construction business, specializing in sustainable, affordable housing. She had a team of 10, mostly women she had trained herself. She was building things that mattered, things that lasted. She handed him the blueprint. "I need your eyes on this," she said. "The foundation specs. I want to make sure we're not cutting any corners." Ray unrolled the blueprint across the patio table. It was a design for a small community center in a low-income neighborhood, a project Olivia's company had won the bid for. It was beautiful in its simplicity, strong, functional, built to last. "You used the same post and beam technique I taught you on the deck," Ray said, tapping a line on the blueprint. Olivia smiled. "It's a good technique. It's honest." Ray looked at his daughter, really looked at her. This was the girl he had about to lose to a fantasy of wealth and status. This was the woman she had become through hard work, humility, and a willingness to rebuild from the ground up. She had taken the wreckage of her past and built something meaningful from it. She had learned the most important lesson an architect can learn: that the strongest structures aren't the ones with the most expensive materials or the flashiest designs. They're the ones with the deepest foundations. "You did good, Olivia," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Real good." She leaned over and kissed his weathered cheek. "We did good, Dad. We built something that lasts." And they had. Not just the deck, not just the community center on paper. They had built a relationship, a foundation of trust, of forgiveness, of love that had survived the worst and come out stronger on the other side. Later that afternoon, they stood on the deck, watching the sunset. The pergola cast long shadows across the garden. The roses were in full bloom. "You know," Olivia said, her head on his shoulder, "sometimes I think about what would have happened if you hadn't given me that ticket. If you had let me stay in Provence. If I had gone to prison." Ray squeezed her shoulder. "But you didn't. You took the ticket. You came home. You did the work." "I did," she said. "Because of you. Because you believed I could." "I always believed in you, Olivia," Ray said. "Even when you didn't believe in yourself. Even when you were at your worst. I knew you had it in you to build something real. I just had to give you the chance to prove it to yourself." She looked at him, her eyes shining with tears. "Thank you for that chance, Dad." He nodded, his own eyes growing misty. "You're welcome, sweetheart. You're welcome." They stood in silence for a long time, watching the sky turn from orange to purple to deep blue. The deck held them up, solid and true, just like the foundation of their relationship. It had weathered storms, it had been tested, and it had endured. Ray thought about the night he had stood on this same deck, 5 years earlier, watching the sunset with his daughter beside him, the smell of fresh-cut cedar in the air. He thought about the journey that had brought them here, the betrayal, the confrontation, the painful choices, the hard work of rebuilding. He thought about the house on Maple Drive that he had almost lost, and the new foundation he had poured in its place. He had lost $180,000 on that wedding. But he had gained something far more valuable: a daughter who had learned the true meaning of strength. A daughter who knew that real wealth wasn't in bank accounts or designer labels, but in calloused hands, in honest work, in the ability to build a life from the ground up. He had built many things in his life: houses, buildings, dreams for other people. But the most important thing he had ever built was standing right beside him, her head on his shoulder, her future bright with possibility. The deck was quiet now, the day giving way to night. The first stars were beginning to appear in the sky. "You ready for dinner?" Ray asked. Olivia nodded. Starved. But first, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a set of keys. Not car keys, house keys. She handed them to Ray. "What's this?" Ray asked, though he already knew. "The keys to the new place," Olivia said. "The community center site. I want you to be my partner. Not just my dad. My partner. We'll build it together. The Whitmore Marchand Community Center." "How does that sound?" Ray looked at the keys in his hand. Then he looked at his daughter. His strong, capable, beautiful daughter, who had risen from the ashes like a phoenix built of steel and sweat and determination. It sounded like the most beautiful thing he had ever heard.